introduction to one of my favorite people on earth, Mr. Stephen Oliver, who is with the Advisor Marketing Podcast. Now, Stephen is a true maverick, and I mean that in every sense of the word. Not only in our business, but I have to tell you, his clients universally love him, and they grow at rates that they wouldn't believe it's possible. Now, on this podcast, in each episode, Stephen is joined by various members of his team or special guests to share insider secrets to rapid growth and high net profits in your financial advisory practice. So I just want you to know you're in for a wild ride, new information, and a lot of exciting new future because of Stephen Oliver.
Hey there, Stephen Oliver. Good to be with you again, and Bob Dunn with Advisor Wealth Mastery. And what we wanted to talk to you about a little bit today is facts and fallacies of the new client acquisition process, of the new client sales process, and just mechanisms for combining two very important factors. One is building credibility, trust, and rapport with a new prospect coming into your pipeline. But number two is having effective and immediate closing skills so that they don't get lost and distracted with other things going on. Bob, let's start with this I see, and of course I'm shopping everybody and going through all this, but so many people have a website with an opt-in page. They have ads running on Facebook. They have ads running on LinkedIn. They're doing direct messaging on LinkedIn. But they're driving them to a website where somebody gives them contact information, obviously interested in wanting more information. Then what happens is that prospect just sits there and nothing happens. You're on this all the time. How quick and immediate do you try to follow up with a new qualified lead that comes in, let's say from a Facebook or LinkedIn or something?
Yeah, I mean, with all the information that is getting tossed in front of us through social media and even scanning websites and so forth, people forget about you almost instantly. So it's imperative that, what I like to do is catch them when they're actually looking at my page, right, so they know who I am, where I'm coming from, they get it. And obviously the returns diminish exponentially, almost minutes. It's just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, obviously 30 minutes, it's a diminish on the return. They completely forget about you the longer you wait. So I would say immediately, as fast as possible, for sure.
Yeah, and by the way, we've done a lot of research on this. The difference from an outbound call going to the person while they're looking at the information that you offered them, the reason they raise their hand, versus, I see a lot of businesses where, maybe every day at 3 o'clock or every day at 4 o'clock, somebody looks at it, or new lead comes in and at 9 a.m. every day, like clockwork, people look at the notification by email, and that's who they follow up. And that's a big mistake. In today's day and age, the numbers used to be, people see 7,000 advertising messages a day or something like that. God knows what it is today. I wouldn't even fathom a guess between, cruising social media, all the stuff they get in their mail. If they use Gmail or something, they're getting ads in their email, as well as most of their emails are advertising. They're getting unsolicited phone calls. Everywhere they look, they're seeing advertising. And people, no matter how interested they are in what you are offering, on what the lead magnet, if you want to use that term, whatever the offer was to get them to raise their hand, no matter how interested they are, they forget about you. And if your follow-up is strictly email, I don't know. I think the average person's getting 200 emails a day. An awful lot, especially Yahoo, AOL, etc., is going into spam and they're never seeing it. With something like Google, it's going into promotional email a lot of times. But Bob, let's talk about our mechanism. Is we always build a page, whatever the offer is. And sometimes we're using lead pages, sometimes it's WordPress, sometimes it's other software, whatever. But we're always building in with the CRM. And there's several different options to do this. It's very inexpensive, where the minute the lead comes in, they're getting a text introducing, in this case, you, inviting them to initiate a call with a live link to your phone number right there in the text, right? They're at the same time, they're getting a live outbound voicemail. They're getting a live outbound email. The email is the least important of the bunch. Same time, you're getting a text message and an email, but the text message is the important one. You're getting a text message to your phone that says, here's the person who just opted in, here's their qualifications, here's their phone number. And, short of it's 3 a.m. and you're sound asleep, you're getting it on your phone and you're making every effort to contact them immediately when they're looking at the webpage. Add to that, you call, it goes to voicemail. They're immediately getting a text message, which, by the way, an awful lot of people will respond to a missed call, but the response rate to a text message far exceeds the live outbound call. And then at the same time, their text messages including what's called a V card, is including a full contact form with a explanation of, here, put this in your contacts, so that when we're connecting, you'll have my information, you'll have the ability to call me. You'll have if I'm calling you, you'll have my information in your database there. Did I miss anything? That's we're doing all those steps immediately upon them filling out any kind of form.
Absolutely. I mean, the only thing I didn't hear you specify also in that communication is maybe you did say it and I missed it, but scheduling the appointment. So there's a link for them to actually go ahead. If maybe we caught them at the wrong moment, maybe they're, I don't know, driving, maybe they went to the bathroom, who knows? But
right.
Obviously they can do it. Maybe they are interested and they do want to follow up, but it's just the wrong time to chat. So giving them the opportunity to book the appointment directly to your calendar, or my calendar in this case, where we can set a good time when they would be free and we can have a further discussion.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And so to further, this gets into a lot of online marketing stuff, whatever the offer is, right? So it's a free report, a free book, a free webinar, a free meeting, whatever it might be, whatever the offer is, we're always landing them on what would be referred to as a success page. They fill it, and sometimes it's 2 steps. So sometimes they fill out information and then we ask them for more. But we're landing them on a success page that says, hey, I'm available now. Give me a call. We can schedule an appointment for more information. Number 2, here's a number where you can text us. And by the way, here's a scheduling link. Click here and you can schedule a time for us to have a meeting by phone or via Zoom to give you a little bit more information. So all of that's happening immediately upon them filling out that form. So that's exactly right.
Correct.
And again, depending upon the offer, and depending upon where the lead came from, sometimes we've seen 80%, even 90% fill out that form. Sometimes it's almost nobody, but it depends upon what the offer, the traffic source, what it is you're promising, and a host of other factors as well.
Yeah, but just to reiterate too, how important it is to communicate right away. I mean, I've ran into people where they've clicked on a few different things, right? And so when I call, they're asking, who were you? Where did you come from? And so forth. But anyways, at least I built that level of communication up and reminded them on something that they may have clicked on 5 minutes ago or 2 minutes ago. And then open a discussion to really try to help them build upon whatever it is problem they're looking to solve, or at least get to know them, make that connection. So many other companies out there, they just really fail in this department. I don't know, if I've clicked on other things and other companies just to kind of see and learn a little bit more about them and get zero follow-up. They're completely and solely dependent on that person making the inbound call, which will never happen.
Yeah.
Very
or what they do is they rely on sequential autoresponder email and nothing else.
Correct.
And that's, it's great to have a nurture sequence built in. That nurture sequence nowadays, fine, it can be email, but it also should be retargeting on Facebook. It should be retargeting on Google. It should be text message follow-up. It should be live outbound phone call, and it should be direct mail. I mean, you get all of the above in a follow-up sequence. And sometimes they're interested immediately. Sometimes it takes a little bit. Mindy, we're talking about here and I want to introduce Mindy, who just joined us as well. So we have Mindy and Bob Dunn and myself. But we were talking about the sales sequence of bringing in a new client and so forth. You were just having a conversation. You and I had this conversation a little bit earlier with, let me typify this, an advisor who's now an independent RIA who came out of a big company. He was, what's the right word, tethered or captive or whatever the right word is. And now he's independent. He's out on his own, growing excruciatingly slowly, with an expectation about sales is people appreciate my authenticity. I don't need any script, or I don't need any preset stuff in the process. Is that a way to typify what the comment was?
Yeah, that's a really good way to typify it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so let's talk about that. And now we have Greg Moody. So the gang is all here. All we need is Jeff and Merrick, and we would have the gang all here. But
Fine.
But Greg, what I was saying is we were talking about the sales process, and we've kind of been talking about the immediate follow-up from a lead page. We're going on through the sales process here. But let's follow up on that comment, which is just, completely off base. And
Sure.
when we work with a new client, is oftentimes what we find, of the many that we've worked with over the years, I forget who coined it, but somebody started calling it drinking from a fire hose. And we have all kinds of pictures of a dog in a fire hydrant, a guy holding his hand with a fire hydrant, a fire hose, whatever it might be. But the reason they started talking about that is we would typically create more intro traffic, more new prospect, new client traffic in a month than they had in the previous 12 months, sometimes in the previous couple of years. And what happens when you have a trickle? Hardly anybody ever comes in, and the people you are talking to are friends and family, and you already have a relationship. Yeah, you don't need to have much of a system. You sit down and you ask them about their situation, and you do discovery on their processes and their opportunities and their assets and their needs and their goals and timelines and all that stuff. And then you tell them what you have, and you're fine. If you are only approaching people in your fraternity or people that you already have a relationship with, and it's a small number of them, yeah, you don't need a process, right? Is that a fair thing to say, Greg? But if you
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more. And we've talked to a lot of people who say, well, no, I don't have any problem with my sales. I get 100% of people to start with me. And yeah, but the only people that you talk to are your neighbors, or the only people that you talk to are the people at your golf course.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Yeah. Or by the way, an awful lot of them that say they don't know their numbers, right? So the only ones that they keep in mind are the ones they had success with, and everybody else dissipates pretty quick. And it's a completely different topic, but knowing your numbers and knowing what's really going on, especially small office. If you have a bigger office, if you're supervising a bunch of people, you're more likely to keep track of everybody's numbers because you want to have objectivity. When you're doing it, oh my goodness. What you remember and what really happened are often two different things. And we never want to think of ourselves as being incompetent. So we have a tendency to glorify what's happening. But my point was, when you go from a trickle of people that you already have a relationship with to all of a sudden 5 times that or 10 times that, when you do that drinking from a fire hose, or just as importantly, if you want to clone yourself, have staff, have associate advisors, et cetera, that can do this for you. If you ever want to take a month in Maui, if you, or worst case scenario, you get injured, you break your, have a back injury or something, and you can't be there for a period of time. You need to be able to have other people that can keep the momentum going and handle that. It's very difficult to do if you don't have a set process that you're training them on thoroughly. And we're not talking about sales gimmicks. When we do sales scripting and outlines and so forth, most of the outlining the words is so you create the opportunity to build the relationship. You create the opportunity to ask questions. You create the opportunity to listen to the answers. You create the opportunity to really bond with the other human being and treat them like an individual, not treat them like a sales script. We're never talking about it's the it's the idiot used car salesman with alternative choice and the Ben Franklin and one thing or another. We're talking about building a real relationship and having tools to facilitate the process and accelerate the close. Maybe
Yeah.
what would you go ahead, Greg? I'm
Well, I
sorry.
was going to say it's to make you more thorough. And what we see with a lot of people that just wing it is they forget stuff. They forget
Right.
to be comprehensive about what they're assessing, what they're making sure that they understand about the client, and then they miss stuff, and then they miss opportunities to provide other services that they could provide and solve other problems that they could solve. That's a big problem. And then there's all kinds of services that they could do that they don't do. I did want to mention one thing. It's not just that we have people that are selling to their friends and neighbors and golf buddies. It's even when people are marketing and they are good at selling to strangers, or they're good at that. If they're not good at marketing, the strangers that they do get and they are selling to are ones that had to work really hard to find them. So if you're not good at marketing and you're not getting enough lead flow, and you say, well, yeah, I know what you're saying. I listen to what you're saying, Stephen, but I do get a lot of people that I don't know and that are not my buddies, and I sell 100% of them. Yeah, but if you're not getting enough lead flow, it was hard for them to find you. And if it's hard for them to find you and they had to go through a lot of hoops to find you, same thing applies. It's still really easy to do the sale if they had to dig to find you and look you up on the internet and go down a funny alley to find you, and you've got other problems, that you create other obstacles for them to find you, then it also makes the sale easier. So still, if you're really good at marketing, you have to be good at the sales process and the ongoing retention process of keeping your clients. If you're not good at marketing, then you can be deluded into thinking those things are working.
Well, and it's the key to building that rapport, relationship, really getting to know the person as an individual, and and having a standard process that you go through. Again, it lets you not be so stressed out on what you're going to ask them next, or what the next step is, but it lets you more really listen to what they're saying, find things that you should delve in and ask more questions about, find commonalities. I mean, the basis of rapport. You get the NLP side, which is kind of the matching, mirroring, modeling. But what all humans do naturally is, where'd you go to school? Oh, great, I went there. What are your hobbies? What do you do? Oh, I like to do that too. It's finding all those commonalities from geography, from hobbies, from career background, and creating commonalities. To some extent artificially, but it's what people do naturally, of really matching and mirroring and feeling comfortable, having them feel comfortable with you. Another topic on that, when you talk about somebody who's coming in cold, is I'm a big fan of, and we create a lot of tools, meaning stuff that they've read, listened to, watched before you sit down with them face to face, and oftentimes between your first session with them and the second session with them, so that they come in and they're really ready to go with you when you're talking to them. I see a lot of advisors who feel like they have to sit down with a prospect cold. They don't really know about anything going on, and then they have to sell them cold, and they have to pitch them. They have the 20-minute script where they don't take a breath and they go at it. I don't ever like that to be a conversation. I'd be rather asking them questions, following up, listening to the answer, having them come in prepped, already familiar and aware and excited about what we do. Anyway, Mindy, I was handing it off to you a minute ago. Well, what would you add to that?
Well, I think the big thing to remember is when we talk about process, we're not talking about creating a cookie cutter experience for everyone. It's giving you a framework and a structure that allows you to not forget anything on your end, but still providing a unique experience based on that new client or prospective client's needs. And the great thing about being able to do that is then on your end, you still have all of your bases covered, but you're truly giving that client a personalized, unique experience that's really going to benefit them in the end, which is the whole point of you doing this anyway.
Right. Let's go down to the other end of the process for a second, and then we'll cycle back and kind of outline what we've talked about so far. But the point at which in any sales conversation that really gets a bad rap and that terrifies people who, don't feel like they have sales background or don't want to be salesy, is the actual close. Getting somebody to finalize the decision and to complete the transaction. And, as you guys know, I've been on kind of a mission to listen to every podcast out there by all the, the experts and the, gurus and so-called gurus and so forth, as well as I just added a stack of about 100 books that I'm sorting through. But I was listening to one the other day, and this is a guy who's a sales expert to the industry. And I'm hearing him explain the process that he teaches. And when he comes to it, he says, and then I give them all the packet of information. I give them a really nice folder and I send them home and say, get back to me when you made a decision on what you want to do.
That's terrible. You get me anxiety.
I was listening to that going, oh my God. Now, what you don't ever want to be is be perceived as pushy. You don't want to be perceived as needy. You want it to be where the body language that they're getting from in a nice and friendly way is that we'd love to work with you. We've got a lot of people we work with, but we think specifically in your case, we could have a lot of benefit from.
It's Lee Milt here, and I'm delighted to interrupt you today and let you know that I've been working with Stephen Oliver for 10 or 15 years now. He's a great guy. I love all the research that he does. And I just wanted to let you know that if you're enjoying the content on this podcast, then you really want to make time to visit advisorwealthmastery.com. And why should you do that? Well, because you're going to receive 2 of his great books and actually one of mine called Success is an Inside Job. You'll also get a lot of absolutely free material on growing your practice through effective marketing. So again, take the time to go to advisorwealthmastery.com.
Are for you and could accomplish great things. But you don't want to be needy, and you want them to feel like that you've got a lot of other people you're working with and one thing or another. But you want to have a day and time when you're going to finalize. And to be finalized is they write you a check and they give you all the information they need to transfer money into the account, to finalize paperwork, to do whatever it is the recommendation is going to be. But there's got to be a day and time where they sign the paper, they write a check. And what happens with all human beings is, we have this stuff that goes in our mind, never make a decision before you sleep on it. Never make a decision before you read the paperwork. All this crap that people have been taught by mom and dad and sitting at the steps that give them the natural inclination to, if they can make a decision today or tomorrow, they push it off to tomorrow. And there's got to be a point where during the process you prep them, we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, and at this point we'll make a decision. And if it's a good fit, here's what the next step is, and it's not, that's fine too. But there's got to be a point at which they're ready to make that decision and to move forward with you, right? As a brief aside, one of the advisors we were working with, and I was beating my head against the wall. Every conversation was left with is, I'm going to have my assistant reach out and sync schedule and make our next appointment. What? No. This is our first meeting. What I'd like to do is get this information. We're going to schedule. Usually I like to have about 72 hours between now and then. Today is Tuesday. Do you want to maybe do Thursday, Friday, or what do you think, Monday? What's going to be better in your schedule? Narrow it down. Have a specific appointment. Friday is good. I'm pretty tied up in the morning. I could do around noon, or I could do late afternoon. What do you think would be better to get everybody together? Well, you get an appointment. The other thing, we're using software. I mean, a lot of this stuff is automated. We're using software to remind them by text messaging, by email. We're reminding them of what their next steps are. We're giving them additional tools to review, videos, reports, and so forth that they're expected to have done and reviewed before that last meeting or that next meeting. But anyway, I covered a lot of ground there, but let's go back to closing. Mindy, what would you say about closing, or Bob, what would you say gets missed on a lot of that stuff?
I mean, number one, most of them feel like they do more talking than hearing. I mean, it's so important to listen. Don't fill void air with just gibberish. You always want to make sure. And the other one is it's a steal from Tom Hopkins. Feel, felt, found. Hear them out, find how you can help them. And that's what it comes down to. It's all about helping your client. So never feel like you're selling. Always understand that it's a helping moment.
Right. Well, what bothers me the most is people who get verbal diarrhea in the sales process, right? Is really, it should be anything that you have to teach them. That can be handled by tools. Anything that you do individually one-on-one has to be stuff that's personalized to their situation, their unique proposal, their unique ideas, but things that you have to teach them about what you do, what the process is, what the opportunities are. That's stuff that I can send them a link to a videotape, a video recording. It could be on YouTube. It can be on your channel. I can send them home with a DVD. Some people still have DVD players. I can send them home with a written material, etc. But those tools can accomplish all of that teaching that's not specifically individualized and personalized. Greg, what would you add to that as far as actually finalizing and closing?
Yeah, we see a lot of people that are not listening at all, and they need to listen and not lecture.
Correct.
That's the easiest way to say it. They need to listen and not lecture. And you can tell what's happening if you're doing most of the talking.
Right.
If you're doing most of the talking, then it's not working very well.
Yeah.
That's the way to break it down.
I like it to be, I'm doing 10%, which is mostly asking questions. They're doing 90%. And also I want the process to be, to the greatest extent possible, what would be considered takeaway. So they're asking me and I'm more or less taking it away and pulling away. That's a better process than I'm like begging for business. It's, again, nobody likes needy, and nobody, wants false urgency. They don't want somebody who feels like they need a check this week to make the rent. All of those are a massive turnoff. So you've got to have that sense of professionalism, that sense of, frankly, whether they're a client or not, it's not going to affect your lifestyle. However, here's all the things that I think makes this a good fit, and all the things that we can do, and the reasons why it would be a smart decision for you.
Yeah, and I think for some people that are listening, it maybe they don't feel that way right now, and you may not feel like you're you may be feeling like, gee, I really want to get more business, and I'm really maybe not feeling desperate, but you may be feeling really anxious about getting business, and you maybe you'll feel anxious about getting more clients, and it may not how you feel personally, but that's why when we work with people, we need to practice and help you with how to say it. And that's why the sales process is really important. And when people just wing it, they're more likely to express the wrong emotions when they're talking to a client. If they have a set process in place, then they're going to have more, they're going to be able to express the right emotions, which is, if the process is to explain something, but then make sure that the client has room to talk, that's built into it, it's baked into the process, then they won't make that error. They're going to make the errors that, believe it or not, this is really building in the emotional content of it too. And I can't emphasize that enough, that's why it's really important to have really a professional process. A professional process is less of, I'm the world's greatest salesperson, I'm winging it, and a lot more of, I've got something really professionally laid out that I'm going to, in a process that I'm going to go through with you. That's professional, not I'm kind of some sales dude and I'm winging it. Yeah.
And it's all about them. It's not about you as well. So you're asking questions, you're listening to the answers.
And that's the process. The process is designed that way, so you can't screw it up.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. I mean, we're not in a niche that's short on ego. It's amazing how many advisors aren't particularly good at listening and hearing what the person says, and they want to, roll on and wax aimlessly about their expertise, but they're not really listening to the emotional needs, the the actual needs, monetary needs, financial goals, objectives of the client, and and then it goes off completely sideways. My pet peeve, we haven't brought this up yet, but my pet peeve is always having all the decision makers in the cycle, right? So in all kinds of different sequences, we see a lot anymore where maybe it's a retired couple and their kids need to be involved in the conversation, right? Or it's not as an older family, but maybe they need to get their parents engaged because they're talking about family planning. Or it's a situation where you're talking to the husband and the wife needs to be involved, talking to the wife, the husband needs to be involved. I always consider, or you're talking to a business owner about the deferred compensation plans or something, and he's got a partner, he's got a board of directors, he's got a CFO or COO, or maybe even has an accountant and a lawyer that wants to get their head in the mix, unfortunately. But whenever you're going through the process, regardless of what you're trying to accomplish, it's a complete wasted breath when you don't have all the decision makers in front of you, when you're using effective tools, when the other decision makers haven't gone through those tools and reviewed and are familiar with what you're talking about. I can't tell you how many times I've seen, a conversation implode because unknown to the advisor, the wife needs to be involved, the husband needs to be involved, business partner needs to be involved. There's somebody else that if they had just been good at asking questions, listening to the answer, and asking the right questions, they would have figured out who needed to be involved in the conversation to begin with. I mean, I would never, try to pitch something to a company without having all the right people in the room. I would never try to pitch something to a couple without having both of them there. No matter what either one of them says, my process is I require spouse to be there, and or anybody else who's going to be involved with this to be there, so we can get everybody on the same page and know what's going on. Every now and then somebody gets agitated by that, but I got to tell you, 9 times out of 10 it saves the process rather than getting in the way.
Plus, they probably should be. I mean, this is there's potential for what happens if it's a couple and the wife says, no, I can take care of it, or the husband says, I can take care of it, and the other spouse passes away first. They should know what's going on, and they should communicate about these things. But you're right, in terms of how to make sure the sale is concluded, that it's much better than the whole, this sounds really good and this is a big decision and I need to go think about it. Well, really, when they go home and think about it, there's nothing. If anybody that's listening never heard that, people don't go home and think about it and like make some kind of spreadsheet up to think about this stuff. They just don't talk about it, and then it's over. If they think about it, you're an advisor. That's built into the name. They should be getting your advice about it, and you're supposed to be doing something really positive and good for them. So they probably need to have your input when they're going through the thought process. And that's something that we need to help you with too, on how to manage that. But they do need your advice on what things they might be thinking about.
Yeah. And again, it's not gimmicky. If you've pre-framed all along, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's the point at which we're going to make a decision. Here's the information you need to be familiar with before our first meeting. Here's the information that I need and that you need before a second meeting. We'll go ahead and make a decision if it's a good fit and it works within your parameters, and decide to move forward or not. At that point, as long as they're prepped, there's nothing gimmicky about it, and there's no it's not bait and switch, and it's not alternative advance where it's gimmicky. They're clear, you're clear on what the process is, and also it doesn't look needy, doesn't look like you have to make the sale to make the rent. It's just the next step in the logical process. One of the language I like to use is, well, it seems like this is a good fit. Do you have any other questions? No. Well, what our next step is this. What we would need to do today is finalize this paperwork and get this done. Our next step is going to be, I'm going to need this information, and then we'll go ahead and get this set up and this set up and this set up. What I'd like to do is schedule that follow-up meeting for that. When's good? Probably early next week to give you time to do it. Great. Here's our standard paperwork. I might add that we talked about this. I'll add that in. So let me get you to okay that. And then however much they're going to pay initially, do you want to do Visa, MasterCard, Discover, check, whatever. And I get the thing closed. And, frankly, oftentimes you get some little pushback at that point, but that tells you what you missed as well. So, well, I'm not sure. Well, what specifically? Well, I need to figure out this. Oh, I thought we had talked about that. Let's go back and cycle back, and it gives me a chance to come back, solve that, find out if there's anything else that's, uncertain or unanswered, and finalize. We've been on this topic for a while, but guys, anything else to add before we close, and we'll come back to this next time?
I think we've covered it pretty thoroughly. I think everybody needs to make sure that, number one, they have a process. Number two, and, again, we can help you with that. You have a process if it's, scripted and you can, I guess one measurement of whether you have a process is, could somebody else do it? Or does it have to be you? If it has to be you and you're the only one that could do it, then guess what? You're never taking a vacation for a month to Tahiti.
Yeah.
So that's one measurement. If that can't be done, then that's the next one of your tasks next. And what we usually help a lot of people with.
Yeah. And we've been in a situation with a ton of employees spread across a whole bunch of different offices around the city, or Greg, in your case, you were in Arizona and California at the same time. We've been in the other situation of having, franchise offices where we've been doing sales training, as well as with training staff for clients across the board. And again, you want to have a systematic process, whether it's you and a part-time receptionist, or whether it's a whole office full of people that you're training and developing and supervising. And, frankly, for all of the other legal issues that we come up with in our industry, with all the compliance issues and so forth, you better have a checklist to make sure you didn't miss any key components. You better have it in writing, because you don't want any of that stuff to come back and haunt you. So it's really important to have that process. Bob, anything to add?
No. The only thing I was going to chirp in there a little bit back when Dr. Moody was bringing up, making sure they have the decision makers in a room, because how many times where we've not had that happen way in the past that they've said, well, I actually need to go and have a chat. You had brought this up with either the spouse or business partner, what have you. And the last thing you want them trying to do is re-explain the conversation you just had in that room to somebody else, because it'll never translate correctly. Yeah. So again,
my daughter's a CPA. I wanted to run all this by her. Well, okay. The last thing we're going to do is send home a notebook of everything for them to review at the kitchen table. What we want is all of the people involved in the conversation. Yeah. Mindy, what would you add?
Yeah, I was going to say exactly what Bob said. That's so key to have everybody there. But again, just that reminder of, get your process, get comfortable with your process, so that the focus really is on being personal for your client.
You bet. Yeah. And whether you're meeting face-to-face or you're meeting via Zoom or you're meeting, I guess, by phone nowadays, I love meeting people by video. Phone misses a little bit of that interaction. But regardless, the face-to-face interaction really is about establishing human-to-human contact and having them really feel comfortable with you, with the environment, with your associates. If you're in an office, with your office. And by the way, Mindy, we've seen a lot of fails. We've done a lot of conversation with both clients, prospective clients, but also suppliers. And all of a sudden, they're having a meeting, and they're in their bedroom, and they've got an untidy situation, or they've got an unimpressive environment, one thing or another. And you've got to be aware of all of that stuff. One of the advisors we work with, he has his office and he has a conference room, then he has his Zoom room with the format and setup. Hell, it can be a spare bedroom in your house with the right backdrop. But it's having all of the staging right, but then that's to facilitate building that relationship and having them feel comfortable with you, and having them both feel your professionalism, but also your empathy and your concern for them. Well, let's call it a day on that. That's an awful lot of information today, and we'll pick up with that next time.
Sounds good.